Hi, I'm Eric from longboxreview.com, and welcome to Center Seat, my Star Trek podcast. Star Trek Day, everyone. Besides celebrating the anniversary of the best sci-fi franchise, period, I wanted to relay some Star Trek news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con back in July 2025. Some other items that have been announced as well, and ending with some quick thoughts about Strange New Worlds Season 3 thus far. The course is now plotted, so let's engage. First up is IDW is going to publish the return of James T. Kirk in the comic book The Last Starship starting in September. This comic book was announced prior to San Diego Comic-Con, but it got my attention because the Star Trek series that brought back Captain Sisko that I've been reading for, about a year or so, has been fun to read, and this sounds like it might do the same for my favorite Trek character, James T. Kirk. Here's the description of the series from IDW. The Federation has fallen. Hope is fading. One last starship remains to fight for the future, unless a resurrected James T. Kirk dooms it first. Writers Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, along with rising star and artist Adrian Bonilla, now bring you a new mission, the likes of which comics have never seen before. For 7 centuries, the United Federation of Planets brought together the entire galaxy with peace, stability, enlightenment, and the promise of mutual protection. And then, in one terrible moment, it all crumbled in an event known as the Burn, a galaxy-wide disaster in which dilithium has gone inert, causing the detonation of every active warp core. The only ship remaining is a hack-and-slash Enterprise Omega and its ragtag crew. Facing a true Wild West in space, the crew will need to make use of what few resources they have to uphold Starfleet's mission of unity across the universe, and Captain Kirk will have to face a future without the Federation he loved so dearly. This also features covers, or at least a cover, I'm not sure which, by Francesco Francavilla, which he does awesome work. One of the other artists that's listed is Heather Moore. It makes me happy to see Jim Kirk back in Star Trek. It seems with these new Treks, Captain Kirk, at least the one that's been portrayed by William Shatner, has been pushed aside or deemed unimportant to Star Trek, unlike his Vulcan first officer. Look, I get it. Spock is very, very cool, and someone I once emulated when I was in middle school for a semester. Regardless, it was Jim Kirk's charisma, intelligence, and ingenuity, along with the great supporting cast, that made Star Trek what it is and what it is for me. I will be getting this collection and perhaps even talk about it on the show in the future. I plan to do that one of these days, is talk about Star Trek comics that I've read. All right, so that, like I said, that was before San Diego Comic-Con, and here's a few major announcements coming out directly out of San Diego. First up is Khan, the audio drama.
This is Star Trek Khan, the untold story of Star Trek's most legendary villain.
Captain Sulu, The new pieces added to this puzzle by the logs I retrieved on SETI Alpha 5 only confirm my belief that Khan was much more than a mad tyrant.
What is it you hope to achieve here? Khan and his people are dead.
It is my intention to find the truth. Help me find the rest of the story.
Featuring Naveen Andrews as Khan.
Kirk did us a favor. From this quintessence of dust, we will rise.
Weapons ready! Fire!
Ren Schmid as Lieutenant Marla MacGyvers.
The simple fact remains that we are both here now and must find a way to share this world and its dwindling resources.
Sonia Cassidy as Dr. Rosalind Lear.
In my experience, monsters are made, not born.
With Tim Ross as Ensign Tuvok.
Vulcans find it incredibly difficult to lie. Why this renders us especially sensitive to the lies of others, I am not aware.
And George Takei as Captain Sulu.
Khan was one of humanity's greatest mistakes, a product of ill-advised genetic manipulation.
If there is any justice in this universe, one day we might avenge ourselves, starting with Captain James T. Kirk.
Star Trek Khan. Coming soon, wherever you get your podcasts.
I am Khan!
This podcast series was announced 3 years ago on Star Trek Day, which I watched live. And the announcement was made by Nick Meyer himself, director of Star Trek 2 and 6. It is scheduled to debut on September 8th with weekly episodes. And so by the time you hear this, by the time this is released, the planned release of this, you will already have access to Khan, the audio drama. Supposedly, this will tell the story of what happened to Khan and his crew after Kirk and company left them on SETI Alpha 5. I will be definitely listening to this. And of course, the big major thing, Star Trek related, that was announced at San Diego Comic-Con was Starfleet Academy. The next new Trek series will be arriving next year. It's a new beginning for Starfleet, even though we'll see a few familiar faces, and not all of them are from Star Trek Discovery. So here's the trailer.
And so, we begin. I'm Captain Nala Ake, Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. We're all the first Academy class to return to our campus in San Francisco after more than 120 years. Some of you are here for your families, some for yourselves. Together, you are the best and the brightest from across the galaxy. A tapestry that is Starfleet. You will learn the skills that shaped our greatest officers.
Duty, honor, service!
Like them, we'll ask you to give more of yourselves than you knew you had. To dream without limitations. Whatever challenges came before today led you to this moment. You here now. You weave together the future. So go out and seek, explore, boldly go where no one has gone before. It is my great honor to welcome you all to Starfleet Academy.
Okay, the first thing that jumped out at me was that Holly Hunter is the captain of the training vessel USS Athena. Next, Robert Picardo's The Doctor is part of the crew, as well as Tig Notaro's Jet Reno. who is probably my favorite Discovery character after Tilly, who wasn't shown in the trailer but is supposed to be a recurring character. Paul Giamatti, whom you heard whistling at the end there, looks like a possible antagonist. Finally, as far as the adult characters, there's also a Klingon Jemadar first officer that intrigues me. As for the cadets themselves, besides the mostly human-looking cast, we have a Klingon who wants to be a science officer and a newborn hologram character. Perhaps the Doctor will take her under his photonic wing? I really hope, though, this doesn't become like Trek 90210, if that's even a reference that makes sense. I couldn't think of what the current or modern day equivalent of 90210 is. If there is such a thing, I don't even know. But in line with what I will say later, this is what I want: a Star Trek that looks forward and is not a prequel. So I'm cautiously optimistic with Starfleet Academy, but I will be watching for sure. Okay, let's talk about a few games, Star Trek games. First up is Star Trek Infection, which is a new horror-themed VR game, which is a gaming type that I've never been able to play. So for those people that have, I guess, that kind of money to do a VR game, this is one for you. And this is the description. A VR full-body narrative survival experience set in the Star Trek universe. You're a Vulcan Starfleet officer sent on a special mission aboard the USS Lumen. But something has gone terribly wrong. There's no crew in sight, and an unknown entity has infested the ship. Now it's inside your body, physically mutating you, unlocking dangerous new abilities at the cost of your sanity. This game is set to be available on Steam VR and MetaQuest sometime later this year. This looks somewhat interesting, though I question playing a Vulcan facing, something along the lines of, what we think of as horror. But then you couldn't do the mind melds like they showed in the preview video of this. So I don't know. It seems like a weird combination. But I guess Vulcans are like the most popular Star Trek aliens. But it'd be even better is you could play a Vulcan, or you could play an Andorian, or you could play a human. And I would think each of those species type would be able to have different or access to different skills or whatever. Anyway, maybe that's down the road, but. Obviously, I don't have Steam VR or MetaQuest, so I won't be playing this. One game I might play down the road is the next one, Star Trek Voyager: Across the Unknown. It's has been announced for Xbox, PS5, and PC. It's a single-player game and has no release date as yet. It features a choice element that could be detrimental to NPCs if you make the wrong choice. In the announcement teaser, it looks as though you will be able to control the ship, along with the requisite encounter with the Borg. Beyond that, the teaser doesn't show what the gameplay looks like. So, I guess pay attention to future announcements for Star Trek Voyager: Across the Unknown. Okay, just a few more things. And I'll start here with Strange New Worlds Season 3. Which is kind of odd because I still haven't talked about Strange New Worlds Season 1 or 2. But it's in the plans. But I thought, what the heck? Since I'm talking about some Star Trek news and Strange New Worlds Season 3 is currently going on. I think there's only a few more episodes left of it. I was not happy with how the season started. But the middle part got better. And at the time of this recording, I haven't seen the final 3 episodes. So I guess we'll see how it ends up. So here are some quick thoughts about the episodes I have seen, starting with Hegemony Part 2, which is the season opener. I thought that the Gorn hibernation element to that episode was a neat way to remove the Gorn from the board until Kirk's encounter with them in the original series. Is what is happening to Captain Batel throughout this season, a way to bridge the reptile Gorn and the humanoid Gorn that we saw in that original series episode, much as Enterprise did with the Klingons. And I know that's a somewhat controversial episode and explanation about the Klingons. I didn't mind it. And speaking of Klingons, whatever happened to the Discovery Klingons that we saw that looked, somewhat different, I'll say, given that we have the movie and Next Generation style Klingons on Strange New Worlds now. Did I miss something? Because, as I recall, a lot of people were like, why are you changing the Klingons? If this is supposed to be in the same timeline as the original series, what is this? And maybe it could be easily hand waved away by saying that there are different, just like there are different looking human beings across the world, there are different Klingons across their area of space. But, it's definitely quite a contrast to see Klingons as they first appeared in Discovery, and now they are, the Klingons we were used to seeing on Strange New Worlds now. All right, next episode was Wedding Bell Blues, and we got a Trelane/Q element. First, I thought Rhys Davis did a wonderful job evoking Trelane. If that is indeed who that character was supposed to be, I mean, it certainly looked like it, and the way that he portrayed it certainly seemed like it. Second, I thought the Q or the Trelane's father, who was voiced by John Delancey, would mind wipe everyone. But then I thought, why? They wouldn't care. However, that did not happen, creating a huge mistake in my mind, given that Spock encountered Trelane later in the original series episode. Even if that isn't Trelane in this episode, Spock would tell Kirk, "Hey, Captain, I recall meeting a being like Trelane, blah, 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 blah." So, Third, please, for the love of God, stop with the Spock romances. I just feel like, given that Spock is at the time that he is with Captain Pike, as we saw in the original pilot, he's more emotive, and they certainly are playing with that, and that's fine with me. But the fact that he and Nurse Chapel had a thing, and now La'an, I was like, oh, come on. To me, this is like fan fiction made canon, and I don't like it. The only romance that I will allow for Spock, because I am the be all end all of Star Trek, right? Is what was her name? From This Side of Paradise, Leela Kalani? I don't know. Anyway, that woman. So if they want to introduce that, great. Let's do that. But not fellow shipmates. Anyway, so it's things like this, like the Trelane thing, like Spock's romances, that make me think this is not actually part of the original series timeline, despite what the producers say. All right, Shuttle to Konfori. Zombies? Really? Really? Just makes me think they're running out of ideas. I will say, though, I do like Warrior Mabenga. That guy can certainly handle himself. He's one of my favorite characters on the show. The Space Adventure Hour. Okay. A holodeck episode? Really? I will say, though, I did enjoy La'an playing detective in this. But, it's like, come on. Quit bringing in all these elements from Next Generation or, ideas like that. Don't do it. All right. Through the Lens of Time, the next episode was much more like it. This is what exploring Strange New Worlds is supposed to be. And it was very cleverly done with, once the folks entered that chamber and we get these different time space elements to it. Anyway, I thought that was a really cool episode. And then they had another good episode in the Selat who ate its tail. That was basically, to me at first, especially at first, the Doomsday Machine. I actually like that this James Kirk, and I will go on record right now saying I don't like that actor playing that character. Anyway, he had an opportunity to work with Spock, Scotty, Uhura, and Chapel. And I can see this experience, and I'm okay with this, playing around with, fast and loose with history, because we don't really know what happened before Kirk took command of the Enterprise. But I can see this experience making him want to keep those officers when he takes over. The forced camera work in what is Starfleet was a bit annoying. They made it make sense because they record things in certain red alert situations, or maybe it was a specific level of mission or whatever it was. But could you imagine being a Starfleet officer and every time the captain called red alert, suddenly these cameras are recording everything that you do and say? Like a camera is right in front of your face, recording everything. I don't know. It's just, like I said, it annoyed me. There was too many close-ups in this episode. But anyway, I did like how it showed the tension between interstellar politics and Starfleet's mission of exploration and empathy for the alien life they encounter. That totally worked for me. That was more along the lines of new life forms and new civilizations, that mandate, that mission that Star Trek is really supposed to be about. All right. So like I said, I haven't seen the final 3 episodes. Maybe I'll talk about those in the future. I'll probably end up going back to talk about season 1 and then season 2 before I get to that. But anyway, I guess something to look forward to for you all. As for the future of Strange New Worlds, in season 4, and here's another complaint. We get puppets. Specifically, we see Pike turned into a Muppet, Captain Muppet. This little sliver of fun, I guess, was shown at San Diego Comic-Con, and you can look that up. But, why do they insist on copying ideas from, I'll just say, 90s television shows, Buffy and Angel specifically? I'm thinking of the musical episode, and now we get a Muppet Captain. Bleh. All right. And then finally, season 5, if you have not heard, season 5 will be the last for Strange New Worlds, and it's an abbreviated season. We are only going to get 6 episodes instead of the usual 10. And I'm like, why? I mean, 10 is not enough anyway. I really think these new Treks should be at least 13 episodes. And, I'm sure there's a model or whatever for Paramount and whatnot, but it's too bad because despite the fact that I have a lot of complaints about season 3 and I had some complaints about season 2, I was, season 1 and most of season 2, I was really glad and happy to see. So, well, I guess we'll see how things go. Muppets and all. And then finally, this was discussed at San Diego Comic-Con, but I moved it here to follow my mini review of Strange New Worlds because it could follow that series when it is done. So, at San Diego, executive producers Goldsman and Myers told fans to help them pitch their next show to the new Paramount owners, Skydance. And they already had a name for it. It's called Star Trek Year 1. As you can guess, it's supposed to show Kirk taking command of the Enterprise after Pike steps down. I believe they were hinting at, or maybe even explicitly stating, I don't recall now, the article that I read, but the final episode of Strange New Worlds is Pike handing over command to Kirk, and then they could do this show. To which I say, please God, no. As much as I'd enjoy seeing Kirk and company's first days or year on the Enterprise, I am tired of prequels. Why can't the powers that be boldly go to other times, such as, and I realize this is the past, but it's also the future of Strange New Worlds, the motion picture era. And it doesn't even have to be on the Enterprise. Give us the adventures of the crew of the Enterprise B, or C for that matter. Adapt the New Frontier novels as a show. Show us the Federation after Picard Season 3, and before Discovery's, 30-something century. Stop mining Star Trek's past and go where Star Trek hasn't gone before. Anyway, like I said before, referring to Starfleet Academy, we'll see if that fits the bill. All right. That's all I have for you for this Center Seat episode, celebrating Star Trek and Star Trek Day and all that stuff. Remember, hailing frequencies are open. You can send email to me at longboxreview@gmail.com, leave voicemail or text me at 208-953-1841, or converse with me via social media at longboxreview. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you later. Eric out.